Welcome back to Meno Musings, our monthly podcast where we invite guests along to speak about topics related to the menopause. And this month, which is World Menopause Month, first held in 2014, we're going to be taking a different perspective on menopause. So I think that often when we talk about menopause, it's talked about with a lot of chaos and women struggling with menopausal symptoms and having difficulties in the workplace. And many younger women I speak to really approach menopause with the sense of apprehension and fear. And when you think about menopause, there's actually quite a lot to celebrate about this transition and positives that come along with menopause and getting to the other side of menopause. And so today's podcast is really thinking about menopause from a different perspective. And I guess a wider perspective so that we can think about it and view it in a different light. And I'm happy to be joined today by Stefanie Daniels. And Stefanie is a menopause ambassador, a coach, a nutritional specialist, and Stefanie supports menopausal women in the media industry to help feel themselves again. And we know that this is something that a lot of menopausal women talk about, that they just don't feel like themselves. And so Stefanie supports women to help them feel great about themselves again. And Stefanie describes herself as being happily menopausal, and I really love that. So Stefanie, welcome to Meno Musings.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So Stefanie, it's great that people are talking about menopause more. It's becoming more visible in the public space and also, within workplaces, people are starting to talk about it more. But you do tend to hear about it talked about more with the sense of sort of dread and on balance, I guess, negative things associated with menopause. And so I wonder how we can start to change that narrative and remove some of that fear.
Yes. How can we? Well, I will just tell you how I did. I had a really rough time in 2015. I lost my mum to ovarian cancer. And then 2 months later, I gave birth to my beautiful little baby girl who completed our family of 4. And after I put my life back together again after that, I decided to get tested for the gene that my mum had, which unfortunately led to her getting ovarian cancer. And the result came back positive. It was the BRCA gene, spelled BRCA. And when it came back positive, I decided to take steps to reduce, if not totally eliminate, my chances of getting the cancer. And so part of those steps is to get a double mastectomy and an oophorectomy, where your ovaries get removed. And when your ovaries are removed surgically, you smash into the menopause. So you don't have any gently easing into it, I say in inverted commas. You don't have any perimenopause. There's no kind of, oh, I feel like this, and there's no slowly, it's you smash into it. And when I came up for air from that experience and I looked around at the menopause landscape, it was a very bleak experience. And I thought, what have I arrived on? And I realized it was planet menopause. And I thought, there is no way, after everything I've been through, that this is going to beat me. So I started to dip my toe into overcoming the symptoms naturally. And this probably feeds into your answer of how. And I realized that there were ways that you can optimize your menopause. Fast forward a couple of years, and I now realize, and I'm going to say something quite controversial here, Meredith. I don't know if I've told you before, but I feel like a lot of us hide behind the menopause and we say, oh, I'm menopausal. And then if you look closely, they're drinking wine every night, or they're eating terribly, or they're not dealing with their stress, or they haven't processed certain emotions. And so you start optimizing those parts of your life, and suddenly you're not hiding behind this wall of I'm menopausal. And from that, I came out of my shock of being on planet menopause, came back down to earth, and realized that life actually does begin now and can begin now, hence life begins in menopause. And I wanted to do something about it. I'm not just going to sit down and accept that this is how it needs to be, and I'll show others the same.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple of things in there, isn't there? I mean, thank you for sharing that experience, Stefanie. I'm sure a lot of women will find that really useful and inspiring to hear. There's something there, isn't there, around taking control of your own menopause, I think, and not letting menopause take control of you. I think that's coming out of that, isn't it? And this, and something around that actually it's a time in your life when you can perhaps reflect on your lifestyle and make some really positive and healthy changes to your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. That word control is so true. And reflection, yeah, absolutely. Two brilliant and very, very apt words. And I think the control, let's just break that one down a second. So the control of your life rather than the menopause taking control of you is starting to optimize that. And a good place to start is, I was going to say sleep, but I would probably start with something before that. I would probably start with tuning into your body.
Mm.
So we are a nation, we are a society who is used to silencing our body with pills. If we have a headache, we are conditioned to reach for an ibuprofen, which will silence that headache. But that headache is our body talking to us and saying, I need something here. I need water. I need sleep, or I need calm in this life. I don't need you to silence me because I'm trying to talk to you. And so when you start tuning into the language of your body and what it needs, then you start understanding yourself much more. And then you can look at things like sleep, which is where I was going to begin with. And sleep is fundamental. You wake up, remember, those of us that have had newborns or those of us that have had disruptive nights, sleep is so key. I teach very gentle intermittent fasting, but I don't even entertain the idea until I optimize someone's sleep. And there's a really, really lovely trick that I will give you and your listeners about sleep that has been a game changer for me. And I do it even to this day, which is when you get up in the morning, as close to sunrise as possible, either go outside or open your window and look up at the bare light with no glasses on for anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. And the rays from the light kickstart your internal clock, your circadian rhythm, and have a really lovely impact on your hormones in the morning, and then in turn your hormones in the afternoon and evening. And that's really, really been a great supporting and I guess it's just really leveled out my sleep. And that came from a Stanford professor, Dr. Huberman, Andrew Huberman, his name is. So that's just one tip that helps you optimize your sleep, because everyone says, oh, sleep's so important, but then it's like, well, how do I, I'm sleeping really badly, how? So start with that trick and then look at sleep health, look at ways to go to bed at the right time, putting away your glasses. There's all these different ways. I could go on and on and on, Meredith. Mm. Those are the ways that you will control, if you like, or get on top of your menopause rather than your menopause getting on top of you.
Yeah.
The thing you said is about reflection, and that is totally true. I feel like we're the lucky ones that are in the menopause. A, lots of people don't make it to the menopause. And B, if we can change the narrative and really embrace this time and feel blessed that we are going through this transition, we are wiser for it and we are stronger for it.
Mm.
How critical is that?
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And I think I think this comes with that you need to just pause, don't you, and actually take a moment for yourself to tune into your body, to have that reflection, because often we're so busy with so many things. Maybe our career is busy, maybe we're caring for children, elderly parents, other people. We've always done so much for other people, and actually it's really important at this time to take some space and some time for yourself to do that tuning in, and reflecting on where you want to be and what's important to you at this time.
Yeah, but it's not easy, is it? I mean,
no.
me this. I'm listening to you saying this. I'm thinking about my to-do list today,
Yeah.
and I'm taking on your words, because even though I preach that, to
Mm.
hear so rewarding and so reassuring as well, because we rewarding because we deserve it. And it's okay to want some time for yourself, and it's okay and imperative to take some time.
Yeah.
I need to hear it. And I tell all my clients, I say to them, you have to take this time for yourself. You have to do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And so that is why you said at the beginning, I support, women in the media, because I've been in the media and I know how my workload was. But I still, to this day, my workload is expansive, and I have to just do one thing at a time and tune into my body.
Yeah.
And stay balanced. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like it's a seesaw. And I feel like just because of all the studying that I've done and all the training that I've done, it doesn't mean that the seesaw remains even. It tips constantly. But now I know, and I have the tools to bring it back to homeostasis, to bring it back. And that's the difference.
Yeah. It's about having those tools, isn't it? And I suppose that comes back to education and awareness, doesn't it? And making sure that we're not just focusing on, say, the 45 to 55-year-old bracket, which we know is the average age of going through perimenopause and menopause, but actually that we're raising awareness with younger women so that they recognize when they are in perimenopause, and they have that knowledge and that information to be making these decisions, to know that it's important to find that time, not to try and do it all at once, like you say, because we don't have that time, but to do one thing at a time and to make informed decisions.
Yeah, that generation behind us, the generation just gone. Excuse me.
So
It was so stoic. Don't talk about the menopause. I think a couple of generations before them got locked up for being menopausal, by the way. But the generation before us didn't talk about it. Now we're breaking that stigma and we're talking about it. And that's thanks to the media and mainstream media and what's happened. And so now we have a duty to the generation that follows us, where we say it's okay to talk about it. And also, my loves, it's okay to not do everything all at once. This is a whole different podcast, but us women look at the housework differently to other people, to other genders. We look at it differently. We don't, most traditional households, they don't walk in and men don't, I hope I'm not offending anyone by saying this, Meredith, I really do, but my husband doesn't walk in and think, oh, you know what, the washing needs doing. Or I'm going to answer all those WhatsApps that I need to reply to. I'm going to do the housework. So we have a responsibility to them to say to them, it's okay to not do everything, and it's okay to talk about it. In fact, I want you to talk about it.
Yeah. It's okay to not feel okay, isn't it? And to be open as you feel comfortable being with your own family, with your own children, because that is then educating the next generation coming up, isn't it?
Definitely. And it's okay to not be okay. I mean, even just saying, it's very moving. Hear that. It's okay to not be okay. It's so deep and powerful. And I feel like women just need that thinking environment where they have that space to talk and to be heard uninterrupted. And that in itself is such an emotional bath.
Yeah. And I often think about menopause as being this stage, this phase, this sort of thing, which is inside us all our life. And it's just sort of sitting there and it's waiting, isn't it? It's waiting for the right time, for its time. It's a natural phase. And then when it's ready and when the time is right, it presents itself and it comes forth. And there's something sort of quite comforting in that, isn't there? To sort of think, well, it's part of us. It's just part of us. And this is all natural. And, all women go through this.
Yeah, it's very comforting. It's different with surgical menopause.
That's true.
It was put on me.
Yeah.
at a very fast pace. And yes, I hear what you're saying. It was there, it was always there, and it is for us to step into and embrace. And that's why, you know, women I speak to now who haven't even you know, are not even near to the age of the average age of menopause, as you know, is 51, I like your past, are saying, I'm hearing so many things that are scaring me about menopause. And it's like blowing in the wind, but I'm saying to them, you don't need to be scared. You don't need to be blowing in the wind, because there is a lot of people out there who just want to jump on the bandwagon of, oh my God, I think I'm menopausal. So it doesn't need to be like that. You're absolutely right. It is for us to feel empowered and to step into. It is our super. Men do not go a menopause like we do. They go through the andropause, but not to the same extent that we go through it. So yes, it's our super, it's our cape, isn't it?
And how do you think, Stefanie, that going through surgical menopause, how do you think that sort of changes perhaps the dynamics a bit of this conversation and sort of putting a, you know, this more positive light on the menopause?
Well, you don't get any prior warning. Told you're going to go into the menopause. There isn't a guidebook out there that I mean there's books on the shelf, but at the time I thought, oh, menopause, you know, it'll be fine. I've just lost my mum. I've given birth without my mum there. I've had a double mastectomy through my belly. It was a 12-hour surgery. The menopause will be a breeze. And suddenly you find yourself, I found myself in my lounge, and I felt like I was at the bottom of an empty swimming pool. I felt like I was looking up and watching the world go on. And I thought, where am I? This is where I said I feel like I'm in planet menopause. But I was so resilient at that time. I thought, I am going to climb out of this swimming pool and I'm going to get on top of this mountain. And I did. And I think that that's the difference. I think that you are pushed into this bottomless pit and left with no rope to fend for yourself. And I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. And now the NHS have been phenomenal. They gave me the oophorectomy and then gave me a leaflet, but it wasn't enough. But they don't have the resource to support women. So I thought, well, I'm quite confident. I'm going to start using my confidence, you know, to an extent, to help other women know that they're okay. So the difference is you get pushed off the cliff with the surgical menopause with no warning.
Yeah. And then if we just think about some of the positives, I guess, that come with menopause, or, you know, reaching the end of sort of menopause or going through menopause. There's a lot of positives, isn't there? You know, women talk about understanding themselves better, knowing more what they want, feeling more comfortable in their own sort of skin, and being able to speak to their frustrations or not put up with things they feel are inappropriate or unacceptable.
Yeah. So that's boundaries for me.
Yeah.
That's and to get to that stage, it's lovely to talk about it, but what does that practically mean? You know, especially for women listening, they're like, well, I want to feel like that, but I can't sleep. And I want to feel like I want to embrace it, but how? And so I'd imagine those elastic bands that turn into that big ball of elastic bands.
Yeah.
You know the ones, right? So you can't unravel that with one flick. You have to peel off one band at a time. And that will enable you to get closer to the core root of feeling happily menopausal. You pick off one at a time and start picking off. You listen to your body and what it's saying to you. That is the positive side of menopause. Once you listen, you start unraveling that mess. Once you start unraveling that mess, you step into your superpower. And once you step into your superpower, you suddenly realize that you are blessed to be here. And that is the positive side of the menopause.
Yeah. And I think you probably once you do that, then you start thinking about, what do I actually want from the next decades of my life, and who do I want to be, and what do I want to achieve, what do I want to do in that time. And you get a sense of, because I know that oxytocin is one of the hormones that reduces alongside estrogen, isn't it? And oxytocin is that sort of nurturing, loving, connection type hormone, and that actually we're moving away from that phase now. And it's sort of no surprise that women over 50 are the group that are the fastest growing group for starting up their own businesses, because that you get this sort of sense of energy and risk. You're more willing to take more sort of risk and step perhaps outside your normal comfort zone and boundaries, don't you, at this time in your life?
Amazing. I love that so much. I didn't know that stat. That's brilliant. That's really inspiring. Well, you just have clear boundaries. You just don't take any rubbish like you used to, because you've quite a hurdle and you've overcome it. And so life takes on a new shape. You see the world differently, and you have clearer boundaries because you know what you want for yourself more. Power to the people.
And I guess then there are also things like no more periods, which for some people, periods were a painful time, an annoying time perhaps, was having to have pads and tampons, and when am I going to have a breakthrough bleed? And that can be a time that caused a lot of chaos in itself, actually. And I guess the end of or menopause is the end of those reproductive cycles, and you no longer have the monthly cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very disruptive, that monthly cycle. Some patches do actually give you a period. I know before I went onto the bioidentical patch, it gave me a period. But I then went onto a bioidentical one because for me it felt more natural. But before that I was getting forced periods. So I was like, well, this is it. I've been changed. Yeah, what's going on? But I think tuning in, I really I think that you tune in, you stop silencing your body with pills, and you start embracing what it's saying, and that's the difference. But we need to give ourselves permission for that space.
And sometimes that can be quite hard, I guess, if you're if you're going through perimenopause and you're feeling tired and your moods are up and down, and it can be hard to kind of stop and have that reflection time, or even feel like you've got the energy for that.
Totally with you. There's another tip I just want to share with you. On Spotify, or I'm sure you can get it on most platforms, there's something called pink noise. There's actually technicalities behind pink noise, brown noise, and white noise, the way that it affects your brain waves. And pink noise overrides your system, your brain system, to block out any red alert. So even though you're sleeping, your brain is still on guard to protect you. But the pink noise stops that and drowns that out, and so enables you to just sleep better. And so sometimes if I've had a really hectic day, like yesterday, it was really full on for me. I came home, remember that seesaw? So that seesaw was tipped into stress. And I came home and I went to bed and I thought, I'm going to read another book, as I always do. And I thought, no, just stop. And so I lay down, I put on some pink noise. I personally can't meditate. And so I just laid there and listened to it. Did nothing. I didn't need to meditate. I just breathed deeply. That was my meditation. And I had a lovely sleep. Obviously, also with the morning, looking up at the light, my sleep is really good. And so that was just a way to just stop. Just stop. And
I've never heard of pink noise before.
Yeah.
So is pink noise soothing noise? How would you describe pink noise?
Describe it as, your fridge and a fan in the background. It's like that. You have just the rain. They have lots of different things, but it's just a way to you're still doing something because you're still living, but you're giving yourself that space to just be.
Yeah. And the sleep thing's so important, actually, isn't it, for so many things? Not just because some women struggle sleeping and night sweats, but also just to cope with everything else during the day. If you can get a great night's sleep, so that night piece, and then getting up in the morning, which is fascinating, really, isn't it? That getting up in the morning and looking up will help you sleep at night. You'd think about that's in the morning. That, you know, it's fascinating, isn't it? So,
Yeah, really is.
absolutely loved this conversation, Stefanie. It's really just shed a different light, I think, on menopause, which is what we were hoping to achieve with this podcast today. Is there one thing that we can just leave listeners with, that when you're thinking about the menopause and, you know, you're wanting to perhaps remove some of the fear, some of the dread, some of the apprehension, perhaps put, you know, more of a positive light on it, what would you leave people with?
Yeah, I'll probably go back to my analogy of the elastic band ball. And so a lot of us have different size plastic, I've lost my word, sorry, different size plastic bands.
Mm-hmm.
And some are smaller, some are heavier, some are bigger. And I think that if we look to conquer it all at once, it's not going to happen. So we need to pick off one band at a time.
Yeah.
Certain bands are going to be harder to pick off, but they will come off. And as you tune into your body and listen to what it wants, you'll be able to take the plastic bands off. I can't say that word today, but you know what I mean, one by one. And eventually you will get on top of your symptoms. You will feel like you again. And so I would say just do one plastic band at a time. And you'll get there by tuning into your body and listening.
Yeah. I love that. So it's really about taking that time and being kind to yourself, isn't it? And listening, tuning in, not rushing, not doing everything at once, just focusing on one rubber band. It may take a few tweaks before you get it off that ball, but just focusing on one little thing at a time. Yeah, I love that. That's lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stefanie, for joining us today on Meno Musings. It's been really fantastic to have you with us today.
Thanks very much.
And for those of you who would like to know more about what Stefanie does, or would like to chat to Stefanie about the work that she does in supporting women to get to a place where they feel better about themselves again, then please do get in contact with Stefanie. I'll make sure that all of her details are posted when I drop this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you next month.